Good morning, good evening, and a very warm welcome to you once again, all the way back down to Djuma in the Sabi sands, where the remnants of the full moon from the day before is in the sky. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and joined on camera, Mr. Seb Rombi, and we are out this morning, and we are excited. There are things already happening and in play this morning that we would like to update you on. If you have not already been watching the dam cam, there is already visual of, we believe, Hukumuri at the dam cam. But folks, we're not rushing there at the moment. There are guests in Vuyatela Lodge. We're going to let them get their coffees and ablutions out the way before we get into the area. And Taylor is in there. She's biting at the bit to go and see that leopard. She hasn't seen it yet herself, but we'll be updating you on that shortly. But apparently he is visible on the dam cam right now, so make sure you go and have a look. So this morning, please feel free to hashtag us Safari Live here at Wild Earth. We'd like to talk to you and show you all sorts of wonderful things this morning. We are live, we are interactive. Let us know what you'd like to see this morning. Seb and myself, our objective was to go out and find Hukumuri. He is very keen to see the leopard. Taylor got out first. She's on her way to see Tingana. Obviously the delay with regards to the lodge and all the updates we got on Twitter about Hukumuri by the dam cam. She's going to go there. We're still going to go sort of to the western side, see where his tracks were last seen, and see if it is in fact him that has come back towards Vuyatela Dam. What wonders are in store for us this morning. Let us get on our horses and get moving. Seb, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Fantastic. Seb is ready. It is a beautiful 18 degrees Celsius, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and the moon, the light coming from the moon, takes about 1.2 seconds to reach the earth after reflecting off the sun, which is going to rise on that side in probably about 10 to 15 minutes. So what a beautiful morning we have in store, and we have our eyes open for tracks and signs and ecology. As always, there are going to be some birds on the list this morning, but please feel free to send through your comments. Let us know what you'd like us to see this morning. If in fact Taylor gets into the sighting with 2 male leopards, I'll obviously be going somewhere else, so let me know what you'd like me to do this morning. Okay, what a fabulous day. Nice and fresh. And so while we continue exploring, Seb and I are going to have our nose to the ground to explore the tracks. We're going to go over to Taylor, who would like to say hello.
Hello everybody, good morning, good morning. Ooh, what's that? Looking for all sorts of strange and wonderful things out in the bush today. And I think I'm hoping we're going to actually have a leopard morning. That ground's a bit hard. Go into first gear. Sorry, we're just going through a little bit of a dip. I'm basically circling this leopard like a vulture at the moment. Now, for those of you that don't know who I am, I should probably introduce myself. It would be a good way to start. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Ferg. And we're hoping to find this leopard eventually. Now, I've had a great start to my day. I've already knocked over my coffee and all the milk and all sorts of things. Forgot to introduce myself. So as you can see, it's going to be a wonderful drive. But I'm pretty sure this leopard is going to improve all the things. And hopefully our luck will change. As Scott said to me this morning, there's no need to cry over spilt milk, Taylor. He thought it was very funny at 4:30. I didn't. So I'm waiting to get hold of either Taxon or Fanoti and to find out if they've left camp yet. We might actually just go and sit on the dam wall and have a little squiz. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any chance of us seeing that leopard from a distance, as it's still quite dark, so we'll have to wait for the light to get on our side, or just for Taxon to start his safari. Crested Franklin, you can see that Crested Franklin is forgotten and doesn't know how to get off of the road. As you can see, it's trapped. It's got nowhere else to go this morning. We're going to take it to the leopard. Are you going to come with us? Maybe you can show us the way. But this is very typical of birds to do this. Look at it go. Well, I would love to be able to tell you how fast this bird is running, but I'm not sure. There we go. There. Well done, you clever Crested Franklin. They're such bright birds. Right, for those of you that did give us all the information, sending in screenshots, alerting us of the leopards, of course, all the zoomies. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Now this is the hard part where we have to just wait and wait and wait and wait. But we'll do that. We'll get there. We'll be fine. Ooh, apparently he's on the move. Okay. I think I saw him. Oh, he's behind. I think I actually saw him near the pad. Ah, I can see him. He's down there. If I can get us into reverse, I can be sneaky and we can go up here. Okay, wait. Let's quickly drop the gear. Woo! Bouncy bounce. I can actually see this leopard. We'll go up top. He's coming this way. Maybe he's going to carry on and keep crossing instead of going back towards the camp. I can maybe pull a sneaky maneuver here. Thankfully our car's green. I'm going to go quietly now though. Mustn't tell anyone actually. Go a little bit further in. Just be very casual about it. Nobody say anything. No, I'm still pretty covered. Thank goodness there's been this flash of rain at the moment, so all the vegetation has sprouted up as we've seen. He was coming down here. But I'm just trying to work out where his kill is. Okay, I'm going to edge a little bit closer because I still can't see the rooms. Where are we going to look? Where are we going to look? Scanning. Can't go too far. Oh, there he is. I'm just going to go right down because otherwise you're not going to be able to see him very well. But essentially he is there. Hello, leopard. Yes, you're a face that I've never seen before. Look at those eyes. That's so crazy. What a beautiful cat. Is this Hukumuri? It looks like him. Doesn't look like Tingana. Oh, there we go. There's the kill. And dragging the bush back. That's very nice. Ferg, I'm going to just drop the... I'm going to see if... Nope. Can't roll. Sadly, I was just going to push the clutch in and see if we could roll a little bit. But he's kind of working in our favor. He's going to come up here, I think. So, let's just go back. Right. Now, I'm just going to go back. We've just seen this leopard dragging the kill. And we know yesterday morning we saw Tingana making the kill. Well, we didn't see it. It was on the dam cam. So, Caitlin, no, Hukumuri didn't make this kill. He's taken it from Tingana. I don't know what happened, though, if there was a serious altercation or sort of how it worked. Maybe Tingana actually got up and moved. I don't know, perhaps he was a little bit intimidated, maybe not feeling up for a fight and defending his carcass. Maybe there was a little bit of a boxing match at some point that we just weren't able to see. It's hard to tell. Leopard, where are you? Oh, there he is. Okay, now this is where we've got to be careful, because now we're venturing dangerously close to the lodges, so I just need to back up just a little bit. Okay, it's not great, but it's okay, because we'll be patient. There are a lot of rooms that go around the side, and they unfortunately don't have a tree covering. I don't know if I feel like watching somebody walking around in their bathrobe this morning. I don't know about you, but if he comes out into a gap, he's moving it fairly quickly. He's just in front of us at the moment. We might be able to see a bit of movement. I don't actually know when the guides are going out on safari these days, but he is in there. I can hear a bit of chatter going on in the lodge now, so that's a good sign. It must mean that there are a few people awake. And I hope to that open.
Welcome. What a start to the morning. Taylor's very happy that she's managed to see Hukumuri, and we apologize for the gremlins that are creeping in, but she's just in that little shadow blind spot where the mast of Gary, I think it's Gary, Taylor mast, should I say, just a little blind spot. So I'm sure they'll rectify that soon. I think you all managed to get a nice visual of that boy doing his thing. Stealing the meat from Tingana. What is he doing? We followed him for a long time yesterday, and we almost now, Seb and I, almost at the spot where I left him. And as we went off air last night, which was quite something, we saw him lying in the road, and then he stood up, something perked his attention, and he was up and down on the road, using the road as silence. But right in front of us, we thought we might have to prep for an action broadcast, and here are his tracks heading back in the direction. Oh, this is exactly where we left him. You can see those tracks there, Seb, in front there. He was up and down on the road here, and what was really, really interesting was something moved in the bushes over here, and we watched him for the longest time. His attention was poised. He was looking. We were infrared. It was very hard to see what was coming, and then out of the back, suddenly we saw this little backside and a tail, and it was a civet. And as soon as Hukumuri identified it as a civet, he just lay down and gave up. So those aposematic coloration that the civet has, the black and white, they taste foul. They are mustelid. They've got glands. They have really, really bad smells. And he just went, no thanks. I'd rather eat a rotten bushbuck that's been sitting there for 2 days. Sounds like a plan, eh? So his tracks are here in the road. He has come back this way. There's been absolutely no sign of him in the road the entire time here. So he probably cut straight across. Who knows if he heard something, if he smelled something. But we're looking at probably a mile as the crow flies directly in that direction. So who knows? Maybe he got an SMS. It is reality these days. Technology is a reality. Okay, well, we are going to continue. It is official now. You have seen Hukumuri. He is at the carcass that Tingana left for him. Or maybe maybe they're friends. No, I don't think so. Look at that sky. Look at that sky with the clouds skirting. Paula, you'd like to see elephants. I will do my best for you. There are lots of elephants around at the moment. It is still quite warm, so I doubt we'll find them by the water. Christine would like to find lions. I will go up onto the northern boundary shortly. That's the last location of the Umkuhuma Pride, and maybe we'll be lucky with them coming back in. Maybe they're also interested in the bushbuck kill that Tingan has left unprotected. So Taylor was going to follow up on Tingana and then go up onto the northern boundary, but I think she now has her hands full with Hukumuri, so we will indeed turn around and head up onto the northern boundary and see if there are any lion tracks coming in. I was thinking maybe towards Buffelshoek Dam. There's probably a good chance we might find elephant, definitely some hippo, and maybe a lion or two. I know Scott is on foot shortly, and he's going to be following up on tracks of potentially Tandi and her cub from yesterday, so we'll also be on earshot to see if we can help him find her, because wouldn't that be marvelous to find that cub again and see how much she's grown in the last few weeks. Okay, yeah, this is exactly where he was looking in here for the civet that came wandering through the bushes. I didn't quite get that name, but someone saying, can we look for Tandi's cub? I know that's what Scott was. Ornich, that's, I'm not quite clearing, sorry. Ornich, that's what Scott was very excited to do this morning, and I'm sure he's going to be heading in that direction. If not, he's already halfway to the area that last saw the tracks. He was very excited. And while we talk about my friend Mr. Dyson, let's go see what he is up to right now on foot.
Morning everyone, my name is Scott. I'm teamed up with Rexon on the bushwalk this morning, and we are seriously excited because we are heading straight into the area where we are hoping in finding Tandi and her cub, as I'm sure a lot of you are hoping for. I'm teamed up with Senzo on camera, and he's doing an incredible job moonwalking along backwards as we walk down the road. We did see an elephant bull not too far behind us, but to be honest, he didn't appear as anything too exciting for us, because we really do want to get ourselves into an area where we are hoping to find some tracks and signs of Thandi. Now, incredible stuff happened last night, and it's a pity we didn't get to see exactly what went down with Hukumuri and Tingana, but there is a strong chance that maybe Thandi heard the commotion, if there was at all a commotion between those two males. Maybe she snuck into the area, had a look at what was going on, and now might be moving the cub away from the Hukumuri male, who will definitely kill that youngster if he comes across it. So we may have to deal with kind of racing after Thandi as she flees from Djuma, but hopefully that's not the case. I've got a new ash bag. I've sacrificed a new sock. For any of you who haven't spent too much time on bushwalk, this is a very important tool. It's filled with ash from the campfire, and it helps you test the wind. I'm quite happy with the way the sock's performing at the moment. If the sock doesn't have enough kind of small holes, the ash doesn't come through, but as you can see, it's really filtering through the sock quite beautifully there. So, a very useful tool whilst on bushwalk. I may be using that, but for now it's a very still morning, not a breath of wind. Joe Smith, you are kind of concerned by the fact that we are considering approaching a leopard and her cub on foot, and rightfully so. It is a potentially dangerous business. They do have increased maternal kind of instinct and care, and are very protective of young cubs. So that same female leopard, if you find her without cubs, she'll 9 times out of 10 just run away from you. But if she does have a cub nearby, she may give you a charge. But we're confident that with our combined skills, with Rexon, who spent many hours and years on foot in Africa, together with mine, we'll avoid getting into any dangerous situations by stopping, listening, being aware of our surroundings, and taking, most importantly, taking heed of any kind of warnings or growls that we may hear from that leopard. For somebody who's not used to spending time on foot, it may be a little bit difficult to pick up those telltale signs that can prevent you getting into dangerous situations, but thankfully we seem to think we know what we're doing. Interestingly, we actually haven't encountered her and her cub on foot yet. We found the cub alone on foot before. We found her, since she's had the cub on foot, but we haven't found the two of them together. So it'll be very, very interesting to actually see how she does respond to us. Okay. Now, sadly, Taylor is in a dodgy signal area, but she is still with the Hukumuri male, so don't worry about that. You'll be getting updates from her as soon as we can get their signal up and running again. But for now, we're going to send you back across to Steve.
And you're back with us, and someone asked to look for some elephants, and what better way to start than to find a pile of extremely fresh elephant dung. This is from yesterday. Probably from yesterday afternoon. It's dried out a bit, but it's still very, very wet. And the characteristic, very uneaten marula fruits inside there. There's lots of grass components, lots of insects. The tracks of the civet that I was talking about before have come all the way along the road here and have actually dug in. There's a bit of a digging here in the elephant dung itself, and whether the civet was busy feeding or whether it was just maybe covering itself with a bit of a stench of elephant dung is hard to say. But this elephant has got a little bit of a dribbly bum syndrome going on here, and that's what happens when you eat too much fruit. And there's a pile here, and then it kind of just spatters that it goes in that direction. So we are in the area. There are elephants in Djuma. I've picked up a little bit of scrubhead dung just to give you an understanding of the wind at this time of morning. I don't know if you can see that, but there is not a breath in the air. So fantastic for people like Scott who are on foot, and good for us as well. There's not too much movement. We can hear everything that's going on. So we're going to continue on. We're heading down, doing a loop now from the southern boundary all the way around up onto the north to see if we can see what exciting creatures have graced us with their presence this morning. So I believe Taylor is in a bit of a tricky area. Hukumuri has decided to put her in a very blind spot, but we are going to keep jumping between myself and Scott and keeping you very updated on what's going on. And if anything exciting happens there, I promise you'll be the first to know. Delilah, age 9. What a wonderful question. Do elephants live longer in the wild or captivity? In the wild, especially down here in Djuma, where they have to feed on a lot of trees and branches and sticks, they wear their teeth down. They can live up to about 55, maybe 60 years of age. In areas up in the Mara where there's more grass, they probably live up to closer to 70 or so. And in the wild, or in captivity, where they're fed a much softer diet, they could probably live up to maybe 5 or 6 years older than that. But it's essentially the teeth that wear down, and once the teeth have wear down, they can't digest their food and they will starve to death, which is quite sad. But elephants in the wild, they still live a very, very long life. There's lots that goes on with them. They are probably one of my favorite animals. They're always busy, always on the move, always playing lots of games with each other. And we spent some time at Buffelshoek Dam, and we're going to actually head up there, see if we can find some elephant, because that is one of the requests. And in so doing, we can encapsulate the tracking of some lions and also maybe help Scotty D with Tundi. Bianca asked, have I encountered an elephant shrew? I have. I have not seen one here. Elephant shrews, or otherwise known as sengis, are an animal that I believe is quite associated with rocky outcrops. Little rocky outcrops. Where I worked before at Salati, we had quite a few of them that bumbled around there. In Mashatu, up on the sandstone ridges, there were quite a lot of sengi. So I do believe that, especially down here in South Africa, that they prefer very rocky habitats. But there are other shrews around. But hopefully we can find you something similar. But I've yet to see an elephant shrew here in Djuma. Wonderful amounts of tracks this morning. The scrub hares in this place blow my mind. I've never seen so many. But folks, please, we're going to continue on our journey. We're going to go over to Taylor and see if her gremlins have sorted themselves out and see what updates she has for you.
They're particularly rude today with these silly gremlins, but hopefully this works. It's sort of quite sporadic. It might have something to do with all the vegetation that's surrounding us in this drainage line. And we're also limited to where we can move around for the moment, as I've only just heard guests walking along the walkway back towards the camp. So hopefully they would have seen this leopard and all got excited and decided to skip tea and coffee and come straight out and join us, and then hopefully we can get a different view too. But he's a beautiful cat though. He's obviously stopped dragging the carcass and he's now just laying down, chomping on that bushbuck, having a little feed. At one point he was staring up at a tree and I thought he might take it up a jackalberry. And I think he will. I don't think he's going to leave it on the ground for too long. Chomping away quite nicely now. And, I mean, there was a fair amount of flesh still left on this bushbuck, so I think he's definitely going to feed on it for most of the day. Perhaps he'll finish it up this afternoon, or maybe he's hungry enough that he'll gobble it all up now. But, First Lady, you've asked about the success rate of leopards in the wild. Unfortunately, it's not particularly good, and your question was referring to leopard cubs. And as we've unfortunately seen over the last few years, and most guides in the Sabi Sand, you know, the heart of the leopards in South Africa, is we don't see many of them making it past 6 months if they're lucky. I mean, if they can get to about 2 years old, they've got a relatively good chance of carrying on, but life often it just gets harder and harder, particularly for a young male leopard, or I suppose for a young female leopard too, as both sexes mark and defend territories. So the boys will go out. They'll normally have to disperse quite far away from home. Although, examples, look at Quarantine. He didn't have to go very far. There's a gap on sort of eastern section, southeastern corner of Cheetah Plains, and he's quite happily taken that up. Hosanna seems to be lingering around. You better be careful, though, especially with Hukumuri. Well, Tingana seems to be acting like a gentleman, but that's going to not last for too long before he he becomes less and less tolerant with Hosana and chases him off. So I don't know where they're going to go up. And the same thing goes for girls. I mean, typically the female leopards, as we know, will open up a space for their youngsters if they are females and live within their territory. They might shift out slightly in order to accommodate their daughters. But look at the whole Karula scenario. I mean, it was very sad with her disappearance, and you saw how many leopards were fighting over that spot. Tandi came in, Shadow came in, Shongile thought it was hers, but no. There was a bit of conflict that happened there. So it's really, really tough for these cats to make it to adulthood, unfortunately. Now, Gordon, you're wondering what the purpose of a dewlap is. So lots of different animals have dewlaps. It's one of the main functions is that it's extra skin around the neck, so it actually helps sort of protect them. So you can imagine when cats fight, and particularly with leopards, lions have got big manes to protect their throats. So that helps. Leopards will obviously try and go for one another's neck, because the idea when they do have a bit of a fight, when it gets to that, normally they'll snarl and hiss at one another, and sometimes disagreements can be solved just by snarling and growling and soaring and territorial markings. You might find one becomes submissive or one moves up, but when it does end up being an altercation, then they're going to fight to the death, essentially. And that extra skin around the neck is definitely going to be... Oh, sorry, that's a game drive there. I'm just going to quickly jump onto the radio to tell Taxon what's actually going on here. Sorry, everybody, I'll get back to that. Okay. Well, let me have a chat to, I suppose Taxon, and let him know that there's a leopard in front of his lodge. It's good to hear his voice. I'm going to send you across to Steve in the meantime and see where he is.
Look at what we have managed to stumble on. Ooh, I wonder if any of you heard that. Paula, we have found for you something beautiful. Here is a young male. Looks like a young male. There's a few more elephants behind. We've just gotten to the back of this herd. But this young boy has been a little bit full of beans. He's very interested in our vehicle. But also he thinks he's bigger than he really is. But he is beautiful. We're going to come around and see if we can get the rest of the herd, which is just up in front of him there. So if you just bear with us for a moment as we reposition. But keep your eyes peeled for this little guy, because he's liking to show us how big and strong he is and how fearsome he is. But his tail is quite soft. His eyes were quite hard when we arrived. There we go. There's Mum. There's Mum on the termite mound with her other little youngster. Probably both of them are hers. There we go. There's the youngster. Right up close to Mum, learning how to use that trunk. The idiosyncrasies used in controlling 100,000 muscles. What is he feeding on? Oh, I wonder if any of the viewers can tell me quickly what plant that is that he's feeding on. It's quite characteristic. Quite shiny leaves. 3 veins from the base. Ooh, I'm not even sure I'm looking at the right tree. Let me have another look. Okay. Sharon wants to know, would any animal survive a snake bite? There's lots of animals out here that seem to be quite immune, and also they are quite aware of snakes. For example, honey badgers seem to be completely immune to snake bites. I've watched documentaries where they get bitten and crawl up into a ball. You think they die, but they just go for a little nap, and then they kind of roll back over again and finish eating their meal. Mongooses seem to be quite immune, but we don't have any immunity to snake bites. But elephants, I think their skin might be too tough. Rhinos, hippos, I think their skin might be too thick unless a snake bit them in really a thin-skinned area. But a lot of the animals have kind of evolved to deal with snakes, and they try and avoid them. If they aren't tolerant to a snake, they'll rather avoid it. Like, I've never seen a lion going for a snake, but then I have seen leopards killing pythons, but then pythons don't have any venom that is to worry about. So, I think very strong venomous snakes, mambas and cobras, would kill quite a few animals if they did manage to bite them. But Tam thinks it's a silver cluster leaf. We're going to can we zoom back in onto that tree? I made an initial mistake, but one of the tricks to understand is that it's growing on a termite mound. It's actually got a compound leaf, and it is, ladies and gentlemen, part of the mango family. It is a false marula. And elephants love it because growing on the termite mound, it's got nice nutrients. But from our elephants, we might move up a bit and see if we can get another visual of them. And while we do so, Taylor is still with that beautiful, sly and cunning cat, Hukumuri.
He is, but he's on the move now. He's not taking the carcass up a jackalberry like I thought he would. Would have been amazing to just see how strong he is going up that tree. See how he keeps looking up? I think he wants to stash it somewhere, but he's now gone straight into this sort of Timbwati thicket, which is going to be particularly difficult to navigate through. So we might actually have to head around. Was he going to stop? Are you going to stop briefly? Now, I'm going to keep in mind that Taxon is also coming into the sighting, so we all obviously want to try and have a view. But now we're losing ours. Let me go forward slightly. Maybe I can direct Taxon to the other side. And he can try from that way. We can stick down in here. See, because we don't have any guests, we can afford to drop down and move about and underneath all the branches. Whereas Taxon's got to keep it sort of, well, in mind that he can't bop his guests on the head. Sometimes that happens, though, to sacrifice. So everybody gets a good view. Normally nothing that a sundowner can fix the next day. Here we go. What you going to do, boy? Well, there isn't actually much left on there. I wonder if he's been feeding on it already. I mean, he hasn't got a huge belly, or perhaps Tingana is the one that's taking care of most of it. Ooh, okay. Ooh, you got caught there, like me on bushwalk. Sorry, boy, those thorns are sharp. So apparently some of you are saying that you reckon that the hyenas actually managed to get some. That would explain why there isn't much left on the carcass. It does look like it's been torn to shreds slightly, where I feel as though leopards are slightly more neater eaters, if you will, whereas a hyena just grabs wherever they can, tears chunks, and gobbles it down. So there's his tail, just sticking out. That's amazing. That's a pretty cool view. Just shows you how that white stands out in the bush. Off he goes. Okay, we'll quickly reposition. You know how good I am at doing a quick maneuver. And, right, so the bushbuck didn't look particularly big as we saw Hukumuri dragging it off. And Vicky, you're wondering exactly that. Is a bushbuck larger than a waterbuck? The answer to that is no. A waterbuck is much larger. I mean, a bushbuck is even still smaller than an inyala, and an inyala is smaller than a waterbuck. So it's not a huge meal, a decent-sized meal. I mean, it's going to definitely fill the belly. We've seen Tingana feeding on it. There were some hyenas eating on it, and now a second leopard. So it's not a small antelope. Let me just go up here slowly. I don't know where he's going to pop up. I think he'll pop up over there. Oh, no. I see everybody's staring in that direction, so he must be that side. So he's on the termite mound at the moment, which is not the greatest view, but we'll get another view of him. I don't know if he's quite finished repositioning his carcass, but we'll play the patience game, and I'm quite looking forward to getting to know this leopard. But off we go back across to Steve, who's spending time with the elephants.
Thanks, Taylor. I hope you get some really cool action there. We have followed these elephants. It's just a cow with two calves, one sub-adult and one quite young. Just the three of them, and she's a bit stressed. You can see by that stream on the side of her head. Not quite sure why she's stressed. It's possible that she's pregnant. Looking at the size of the calf that's with her, it's possible that she's very pregnant, but she doesn't look to be pregnant. But those streamers on the side of the head are indication of stress. Animals will have it when they're food stressed, water stressed, stress due to hunting or any kind of other stress on their youngster, and that stream can come out quite quickly. And they walked right past us from one marula tree to the next. There we have her underneath the marula tree, times of plenty. There we go, picking them up individually. She won't even be looking at the marulas, she'll just be picking them up through her smell. First lady wants to know how long will baby elephants nurse, and it's about 2 years, plus minus. 2 years that they will nurse. They'll start eating food after the first year and a bit, but it's difficult in the fact that their trunk still doesn't know how to operate. So they'll stick their mouth directly on branches and chew them off like that before they figure out how that trunk works. So for the first year and a half to 2 years, they're very, very reliant on mum and her milk. And there you can see that that youngster is still learning from her mother. She's directly underneath her, doing exactly what she's doing. Learned behavior. That's why in parts of South Africa where we've got poisonous plants, and there are elephants, the elephants learn from their mothers not to eat them. They learn that that is not something that I should be playing with, and they will not do so, which I think is very, very clever. Yeah, there's a young bull there. He was very kind to walk across us a moment before and let go of some gas, which was very polite of him. And can you see there are two birds hovering above? There's one. Oh, you got him, Seb? I think to the left of the Ellie, to the youngster. To the left of the youngster. There's one left up there. Yeah. Up and left. Top left of the screen. Yeah. There we go. We have 2 fork-tailed drongos that are really enjoying... Ooh, we have just been surprised by another elephant that has come directly behind us. They are ghosts, and they arrive and disappear very, very easily. It's another bull, bigger than the other bull, and it's very likely that this is actually one whole family unit, and those are successive years of calves with that one mother. To see them in such a small breeding herd is the only reason I can explain that. Not knowing enough about the herd itself, he is following them close behind. He might pick up a marula or 2 on the way. There we go, little patkos, as we say in South Africa, road food. And we are going to go over to Scott. While we do so, while we continue on our little journey here, we're going to leave these Ellies. We're going to go to Scott and see if he has anything updating for you.
Well, no major updates just yet, but through the process of elimination, we know that the areas that we have walked are areas where both Tingana and Thandi have not been. We interestingly enough saw where the Hukumuri male's tracks came in onto the scene of where he eventually, I guess, stole the kill from Tingana, and my mind just can't stop wondering and imagining the different scenarios and how exactly it played out. I guess we'll never know the answer to that, sadly, but certainly very interesting stuff going on with the male leopards of Djuma. So, like I said, Tingana must have gone somewhere, so it'll be interesting to see if we do find any of his tracks. I'm guessing he may have headed kind of back in an easterly direction where there's less pressure from Hukumuri. But again, hopefully we'll be able to piece together that puzzle as we spend more time exploring here. Okay, now living the dream, you would like to know how old do cubs need to be before they are safe from the risk of being killed by a big male leopard. And I would say from a year of age, they've got a chance of not being killed, up to around 18 months, basically when they become independent. But each leopardess will force her cubs into independence at different ages. Shadow, for example, a female leopard that we know quite well, she pushes her cubs out usually quite young, at around a year of age, whereas they can stay with their mothers to about 2 years of age. And any leopard that's requiring its mother's care and guidance is going to be in the way of a new dominant male who, as soon as he kills that cub, will release that female of those responsibilities, and therefore she'll be responsive to his will to mate. So yeah, I mean, sadly, living the dream. This young little cub of Thandi's, which is probably about 4 months of age, maybe a little bit more now, 4.5. I think we guess she was born somewhere around the 10th of November. I think that's kind of the rough time where we think it was born. So yeah, it's still far, far too young, and definitely in the way of the Hukumuri male. I'm guessing what's going to happen is one of two things. Either we're going to see a lot less of Tundi, and she's going to move away from this area as he continues to push on to Djuma, or he's going to kill the cub, mate with Tundi, and then we'll get to see some new cubs. Only time will tell. But essentially those are the two realistic options that are going to play out here. Scary stuff, isn't it? Anyway, let's hope that Tundi's great parenting skills will help keep that cub in a safe spot, and we'll be able to keep an eye on her from the other lodges when they see her. Very good. We're going to keep moving through this area. We are getting into a kind of more likely area to find this leopardess's tracks, so hopefully the next time we call you we'll have a good update. But for now, back to Taylor and her leopard.
Right, now we've got ourselves into the thicket, which has been lots of fun. I got attacked by a buffalo thorn, and unfortunately Hukumuri has decided that he's going to have a bit of a rest behind a termite mound and a tamboti tree. Believe it or not, there is actually a leopard at the base of, the trunk of that tree that you can see. He's just lying on the other side there. So what we might do is he's feeding again. Oh, that's no good for us. Unfortunately, there's no way around that. I also don't want to go barging too close to him and pressure him to move off, because I am going to be having to drive over quite a few trees, so I'm going to be crunching and cracking every now and then. So we will give Taxon a chance after this, and we can maybe come back again a little bit later. Now, he's obviously been on the move quite a bit this morning, and Caitlin, you were wondering why is he moving that carcass? Is it because of Tingana? Is it because of the hyenas? I think a combination of everything. Remember, this is a new leopard in a new area. This is not his home. He's not the ruling male, so he's got to be on his toes. He's fairly young in comparison. I've completely forgotten how old Tingana is, but I thought he was closer to about 10 years old. And I think this male's between, I don't know, just by looking at him, or maybe even 11. No, you're quite right, Nikki. I think he's moving on with time now. We forget that we have to actually age the leopards and the animals as the years go on. That's such a bad guide tendencies. We tend to keep the cubs at 6 months old, even though they've been 6 months for 2 years already. So this leopard doesn't look to be more than, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old, somewhere around there. I don't know if there is much information on this boy. So he's going to want to move his kill to an area that's not going to attract too much attention from either hyenas, from any other predator, in fact. So this is a good spot. The birds are not going to see it, so the vultures, the battaliers, and the tawny eagles are not going to be able to spot his kill and lure anybody else in. And then, of course, the hyenas come on in. It's not really difficult for them to come racing on through this thicket. He'll probably hoist whatever's left of the kill up in a tamboti tree, or maybe a young jackalberry that's growing on this the edge of this drainage. I don't know where Tingana has gone. What we most likely will do, or maybe I don't know what Scott's plans are for the morning. Maybe he wants to come and see what's going on. I think down on the ground is probably better. Oh, and Benoli, you were also wondering about Tingana. So unfortunately, I haven't the puzzle at some point. We can go in, have a look at tracks, see if there was some commotion, if there were other leopards chasing each other. I could see lots of hyena tracks this morning. Again, though, those hyenas running up and down could have quite easily destroyed the tracks that Tingana would have left. I don't know where he's gone or what his movements are. It's also going to take me a bit of time to get used to the bush and the Sabi sand again, and learn the habits of the various animals and their favorite routes to walk, not work. Now, Gordon, it's great that you're asking so many questions this morning. I'm very excited to have these chats with you, and it is, of course, important, especially if you are new and trying to figure out the story and the dramas that are unfolding on Djuma in terms of the animals. And you were wondering, why is Tingana favored over Hukumuri? Well, it's because Tingana is the resident male, and he has been for many years now. So this is essentially the underdog, and he's come into this area to try and take it from Tingana. So you can imagine, our hearts are with Tingana, although he's a very impressive leopard, Mr. Hukumuri, but whether he'll be able to take on the tank Tingana, I'm not so sure. I think Tingana's got experience on his side, and he's not a small cat. He's a fairly large cat. But Rexon was telling me that he thought that Tingana was unwell for a couple of weeks. He said he wasn't doing too well. It looked like he lost condition. But again, that's just part of the ups and downs of the bush, is that sometimes you might get an infection and it takes you a little bit longer to feed. Remember, when these cats haven't eaten anything, my goodness, they just look like skin and bones. But they can come back with one meal, even if it's something as small as a tortoise or a terrapin or a bird, a guinea fowl, just something to give them a bit of sustenance, a bit of energy to move on to something larger. So yeah, maybe that's why Tingana didn't stand his ground. Perhaps he just decided that, it's not worth the fight. Now, with all the change that's going on, the disappearance of Mvula, there really is a serious drama going on here, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in the next few months. And a question from Nina was, do old leopards instinctively know that they can't rule territories? I don't think so. I think they just get to a point where they're tired and they're exhausted. Like, for instance, look at Mvula. He was so clever. He stayed around here. He didn't move very far. He shifted his territory slightly to accommodate Tingana's takeover, but he still had a great life. Often we'd see him, he'd make 1 or 2 kills and stash them in trees, and Tingana would find one and feed on it, keep him happy for a few days, then allowing Mvula to move around freely, not having to watch his back so much. So I think they're just clever when they get to that age. They've worked out the system and they know how to play it in their favor. Sometimes that's not always the case, though, especially in an area where there are lots of new young male leopards moving in, say because a resident male has perhaps been taken out. A similar situation like what we saw with Kruger, with all the drama that unfolded there and everybody trying to take her spot. But I don't think there's much point hanging around here. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a better view, and unless he decides to come out towards us. But this is going to be a one-vehicle sighting. We won't be able to squeeze 2 cars in here. We'll see if there is anybody else that would like to come and have a look at some ears and perhaps the odd beautiful eyes. Oh, hang on. Let's have a look. Let's see. Let's take advantage of this while he's up and moving around, because you never know. I want to spend as much time with this cat as possible. And I actually think Taxon has moved on. I don't think it's going to be a great view for all the guests in the car to see very nicely. So apparently, that's an even better view. Apparently Tristan has a good chuckle every now and then at Hukumuri about the way that he pokes his tongue out and pants like a dog. He was doing it a little bit there. I suppose after dragging that carcass and having a couple of mouthfuls of bushbuck, you're going to be a little bit on the tired side, and that's the quickest way to cool down. But he does stick his tongue out an abnormal amount. Hukumuri, I just was praising you, and then you've gone and done this to me. Tusk, tusk, tusk. Funny cat. Okay, I think we are going to leave him now and let him just enjoy his breakfast in peace. But we'll do a little swing by later. I'm going to see if I can go and find Daryl. Let's go and see what Steve's got.
Thanks, Taylor. I'm glad you got to see him at least, but he's not playing the game. But that is the reality of it, folks. This is live, as we would say. And the animals, they do what they want to do. They are quite characters, but they do what they do. I think we had a really good visual of that beautiful cat yesterday, but don't you think he's got such an amazing face? He's the most characteristic leopard I've ever seen. It takes me a while to identify them, but I saw him yesterday. I knew immediately it was him. So marvelous that you got a little visual of him. I'm sure Taylor will come back at some point and maybe get another look at him. But we are continuing on our quest. We've come down to the south and we're now heading around onto the western side. Craig wants to know what age a leopard is considered in its prime. Well, Husana has just turned 2. And he is living a life of absolute luxury, it seems. He's getting away with all sorts of naughtiness and murder and doing his thing, unencumbered by the other males. But he is not fully mature yet. But then he did lose his mother at a young age. But I would say between the ages of 3 and 4, leopards become mature. And then after that, they potentially have the chance to dominate for the right to mate. And the purpose of that is in cats, lions and leopards specifically. When they have cubs, females will often stay in the area of birth, whereas males will move away. And the purpose of that, I was discussing it with Dave last night. He wanted to know how often does incest happen. And the purpose of it is if you're in a natural system and you have male and female leopards doing their thing in a natural environment like this, in the Sabi Sands, in Djuma, then when the males get to about the age of 1, 2, 3 years old, males like Tingana, Hukumuri are supposed to accost them and send them packing so that male will move for a year or 2 away to another portion of the Sabi Sands, even further into the Kruger Park. And by the time he's fought a few battles and learned how to kill and fend for himself, and then he's picked up some battle scars and some fighting techniques, then when he's far away, many kilometers from his mother and his sisters, does he then become a more dominant male and then have the potential to mate and breed. And the same is with lions. And the purpose of that is obviously to eliminate inbreeding. You don't want to have there is another track, but there's human tracks here. It's a track of a male leopard. But it's not that fresh. Someone has been tracking it here though. I don't know if you can see it, Seb. It's not very easily seen. Okay, well, we're continuing on. So I hope that answers your question about dominance in male leopards and when they become prime. And lions are very similar in that sort of age. 4, 4.5, they become sort of prime males, and they can stay up until about the age of 8 or 10. After that, same in leopards, they just start getting a little bit long in the tooth, should we say, and other younger males come through. But that's good for the ecosystem, it's good for the ecology. If that male is extremely strong, he will have lots of cubs. And the purpose as well, obviously, is to be able to defend the progeny that you bring forward. Otherwise, what is the point? So once you start losing your luster and your strength, it's time to move on and let a stronger, more dominant male take over the reins. Mrs. Grumpy, I hope you're not grumpy this morning for seeing Hukumuri. She says he is very recognizable on the dam cam. I haven't seen those shots yet, but Nix was telling me everyone was identifying him, and I was going, how is that possible? We saw Tingana on the dam cam yesterday, and I could barely tell it was a leopard. But I'm sure you all know your spot patterns. They all have some very good insight into these leopards now, and it's wonderful. Seb, I should go right, eh? Yeah, I'm going right. Aegeus in the eyes, he says. Indeed, he was about 2 meters from me yesterday, just on my right hand side, and he did look straight through my soul, which was wonderful. Which is wonderful. Seb, I actually think I wanted to go left there.
Okay.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to navigate and tell you wonderful stories at the same time is one thing, but when I'm still not 100% with my directions, because I'm still learning these roads, I think I got quite a good hang of it before I left, and then I left and it's all just gone a little bit muggy. But soon I'll have Djuma down again. I do have the map here. Peter Viper asks a very interesting question. Do males know how many cubs they have to protect? Essentially, Peter, the research in the Kruger Park has shown that in a male's territory, there are generally about 3 females. And those females often can come into cycle at the same time, which means that he won't service all of them. So there's that dynamic in which the females can move, and each female can have between 1 and 4 cubs, and he will just protect them as much as he can. I don't know how the paternal instincts work and how they know, but through smell and through probably location, they'll know that that potentially is his cub, and then just through the territorial markings that they keep, because 3 females essentially can fit into 1, if he has fathered the cubs of all 3, he will do his utmost best to keep any interloper from coming in from the west, the east, the north, or the south. But it is also difficult, and we've seen Hukumuri has just pushed his way in, but Tingana is an old boy now. I think he's 11 or 12, and Hukumuri, we're not sure how old he is, but he's definitely old enough to know what a civet tastes like, because he ignored a civet last night. So Hukumuri, I think the fact that he's come in, Scott and I were discussing it last night, the fact that he's come in and Tingana's moving the way he's moving shows that Hukumuri is dominating and is pushing the older man out. And the fact that he's walked brazenly in to Tingana's kill and just said, I will have that for myself, is another sign. Ooh, here we have some kuru. Is another sign that he is becoming more dominant and territorial in the area. Which is sad for some to see, because Tingana's been around and has been dominating for so long. He is quite a character, but new blood is needed. New blood is needed. It's the way the system works. We have one kudu's crossed the road, and the second one is quite tentative. It's about to come from the right-hand side. It's just behind that magic quarry. Just here he comes. Just gets his tail up. And from behind, it's quite easy to see that white flash. When kudus run, their camouflage bodies are obviously blend into the environment, and that white flash is what we call a follow me sign, and also some people call flash coloration, which means if you're a predator chasing that kudu, you see the white, and as soon as it stops running and it closes the tail, disappears. To our eyes, we have color, we can see depth, we see depth, but leopards and lions don't see depth, they see movement. And they see sort of a shape, but difficult to see. Okay, we're going to go back over to Taylor and see what updates she has for you.
I'm on my way to have a fireside chat with Daryl. That's exactly what's about to happen. I'm just trying to find the road that goes to the fireside chat, which is this one. Because Daryl has not left the big wide open plains of quarantine. He's decided he's going to eat all the marulas and all the silver cluster leaves. And I suppose anything else he can find. Oh, he's having, might have to wait my turn. He's already having a conversation with an impala by the looks of it. I'm just going to pull off over here. Hi, Daryl. Isn't that quite funny? The 2 of them standing together underneath a marula. Oh, impala, bye-bye. Didn't want to stay for long. I know Daryl can be a bit rude sometimes, but you got to get a thick skin. You don't need to be offended by everything that he says. Hello, big boy. My favorite elephant in the entire world. Also the only elephant that's very easy to identify because of that sort of bell shape that he has cut out in his left ear. He's kind of like Steph. He also likes to hug trees. Leaning up against one. Must have been something tickling his trunk as he just expelled some air from it. It's quite a funny position that he's got himself in. It did really look like he was hugging that tree. The perfect shape, too, for an elephant to rest its head. Nice saying hello to the termites as well. Still looking for those amarulas. Why do I keep calling them amarulas? Marulas, not amarulas. Goodness gracious. But there he is. So for those of you, because there are a lot of new viewers and you're probably wondering why am I so obsessed with this elephant, it's because I've known him since 2015 when I first started working down in the Sabi sand. I met this elephant that did not leave Earth Lodge. He literally just spent every minute of every day between the staff village and the lodge and terrorizing guests and staff members and pushing marula trees over, almost pushing diesel tanks over one day as well, and eating all the succulents in the Zen garden. Shame. The guy that came around and he loved to do the Zen garden, he'd rake it. Daryl would come through and of course mess it all up. This was his favorite thing to do every single morning. Oh, look at him. He's using a termite mountain owl to scratch his belly. I don't think the termites are going to be appreciating that very much, Daryl. Now, when you are of that size, it is quite difficult to reach your belly. And there'll be a lot of ticks and things that'll be stuck underneath his belly. And to be honest, there'll be a lot of ticks that are stuck around the sheath of his penis too. That's a very sensitive area, so that'll be a really good way to try and dislodge some of those parasites. It was perfect for him. Let's see, you're going to rub your bottom up against the tree now? Now, I would love it if he came over and said hello. Although, I say this, I don't like it when elephants tower over my car and try and intimidate me, but he doesn't seem to be in any of those moods today. He's very relaxed, very calm, or cool, calm and collected, as I like to say. Hasn't got a worry on his mind, and when you're that size, you really don't have to worry about too much. Daryl, come back this way. I don't think he likes me anymore. Mrs. Lapwing, your comment about Daryl rubbing his belly on the termite mound is that it must have been an earthquake for those poor termites. I reckon so. Imagine, do you think they practice drills? Evacuate, everybody to your safe spots. I'd love to know what was going on inside that termite mound while Daryl was having a good old scratch. He's a really amazing elephant, though. He's big. He hasn't got the best or the greatest and largest ivory out of the elephants in the greater Kruger. Yes, I know you can see me, but he has made up for that in the size of his body. You know, he's picked up the pace slightly. Wonder where he's going next. Next marula tree? I love the way they stick their trunks in their mouth like that. It's almost like they're flirting with you. What else they got in here? Okay, let me reposition just a little bit. We're still on the road. We'll get another view with him. I'm upset that he hasn't come over to say hello. I think it's quite rude. I've made the effort, basically coming over, saying hello, slowly reintroducing myself, you know, in case he has forgotten. Maybe he's an elephant that doesn't have a great memory. Hi, Daryl. Oh, no. Yes, we're being cheeky. He's going to be cheeky. I know he's going to be cheeky. Just the way that he's curling his trunk around. We're going to watch him, but don't worry, we've got lots of space to get away. But to be honest, don't think I've had a bad encounter with this elephant. The one day, remember, I caught him at night. I can't remember what road we were on, and he was in full must. And he was coming down the road at quite a pace, not because I was there, just I suppose because he was in a mood. So I reversed all the way out and left him alone. I mean, we don't view elephants at night. We're lucky we can, because we've got all the infrared. But when you've got obstacles like darkness, and you're trying to reverse, and an elephant bull must, you typically leave him alone. So that's exactly what I did, is I just got out of there as quick as I could, and then we tried to find him in the morning. We did actually find him. He was trying to pull a tree down on the conservation manager's house at Gari Gate, which is a typical Daryl thing to do. He likes to make roadblocks. Naughty elephant, this. And most of my encounters with him have actually been on foot and within relatively close proximity too, just a couple of meters. Me trying to get to my room because he was drinking at the swimming pool, or me trying to go and escort guests from their room because they're terrified of Daryl, and he was naughty. I promise you, as soon as you show any hesitation with this elephant, then he goes, haha, I've won. And then he plays games with you. But I won't let him get too close to the car because I know that he can be quite naughty around vehicles. So I'll give him space. If he does come up too close, you'll find that I'll reposition, in fact. You'll see. He's now sneaking. He's plotting his next attack. Well, we'll sit and see if he decides to pop around the corner and come and say hello. And if there's any action, I'm sure you'll come back on the vehicle with me. Scott, however, is tracking. I wonder which track he's found.
We've got some tracks of Thandi, but they are from yesterday. We've got back into the same area where we think she's stashed her cub somewhere. Let me see if I can show you one of her tracks. I just heard a strange noise. I think it was elephants, but it's all good. So I'm just using my cell phone to try and illuminate the track with the flashlight, where you might be able to see it a little bit easier. But basically what's happened is, not easy to see, but anyway, her track is here. And to fill you in on kind of what's happened and what our game plan is, this is a very long straight road that we're on called Central Road. We found her tracks about half a mile behind us in that direction yesterday, and the tracks were coming along this road in a westerly direction alongside Tingana, a big male. One of her tracks was on top of his tracks, which indicates she was behind him. How far behind him, we're not too sure. She could have been seconds behind him or an hour or two behind him. Her tracks continue from this area along the road, but there's no further sign of her cub's tracks, and her cub's tracks were alongside her up until this kind of general area, a little bit behind us. So what we're thinking is that the cub was left behind, she headed off there hunting, and she's going to have to come back and collect the cub at some stage. We've approached from south of us, checked this area very carefully, no sign of her here. So now we're going to check to the north of this road and hopefully find some of her tracks coming back into this area. A lot of tracking is, like I said a little bit earlier, the process of elimination. Check one area, know that she's not there, and then go and check another area until hopefully you get lucky. Now, I'm told you guys have been having some great chats with Taylor about our friend Daryl, that big elephant, and it seems like everybody's got a story to tell about Daryl. He's created quite a few exciting moments for a lot of us. Probably one of the most interesting things that's ever happened to me actually was thanks to that elephant bull. And we were looking at a caterpillar, I think, on the dashboard of the car. There was some kind of insect that had fallen into the vehicle, and we were stopped and we were looking at it, and he just appeared out of the bushes, out of nowhere, just peacefully walking across the road towards us. And then he got to the hood of the vehicle, put his tusks against the kind of bull bar, and started lifting the vehicle up ever so slightly, which was a bit spooky, but at least we had the engine between us and him. And then after a while he just turned off and walked down the road. Nothing too serious. It definitely wasn't aggression. It was a very inquisitive, kind of relaxed scene, but obviously very scary because he's that close. He was actually touching the vehicle. And then about half an hour later we bumped into him again, and he was having a mudwater at Treehouse Dam, enjoying his stuff. So I thought, well, let's see what he gets up to. And he eventually, after a few minutes, stopped mudbathing and came right up to the side of the car where I was sitting in the driver's seat. And we've got no driver's door, not that the door would do anything for an elephant. And he actually put his right tusk was just on the kind of body of the car, behind where my seat is. And I actually ended up putting my hand onto his tusk. I had mud covered on my hand. In the attempt to kind of push him away. Of course, there was no ways I was going to be able to push away a 6-ton elephant bull, but that's what I ended up doing. Sadly, we didn't get that on camera. I mean, you could imagine he would have been about as far away from the camera is now as it's far away from me. Sorry, that didn't come out very well. Basically, the cameraman would have been very, very close to the elephant, like elephant's right here, and he just zoomed out completely, but the elephant was kind of full frame, and we didn't see my hand going out onto it. I was with old Dave. He had only been here for about a week or so he got a good baptism of fire. Oh, there's some Nyalas. They're quite relaxed in Yala on foot, and these two fairly young boys are just enjoying their morning, cruising about. I wonder if they've got any idea where old Thandi is. Now, I pronounced Inyala, as a lot of Americans may pronounce it, the way that it's kind of spelt, N-Y-A-L-A, but the official pronunciation is an Inyala, not a Nyala. Tundi is also Tundi, not Tandy. We should actually give little ways how to pronounce it, because if you pronounce a lot of the African words as they're spelt, it often doesn't sound as it really is. And there's a little quick lesson for you. Very good. We're going to continue on. I'm feeling that we are going to find some fresh tracks of Tundi, and she is going to lead us to her cub, who we definitely need to see because it's been too long. But for now, back to Taylor and that beautiful big elephant.
Scotty, you make me laugh. I think we should have a show or a safari life story or something along the lines of Scott's lingo. Between him making me call cheetah cats. I can't just say the word cheetah anymore. It has to be a cheetah cat, and that comes from Scotty D. Nyalas and Tandy and all these amazing things. Him and Manu must have been hysterical on the car together, because Manu also has his own vocabulary. He creates words all the time, like pan scan, and says caption, or just says random things like, if you ain't cracking, you're lacking. I don't even know what that means, but he'd say it all the time. Right, but Daryl's been cracking, though. He pulled an entire branch off the silver cluster leaf tree. Was that really necessary? And I was telling Rexon, and that whenever I've ever watched this elephant feed, this is what he does. And it's quite typical of big bulls. I used to see it a lot in Zambia too, when they'd stand up on their hind legs and snap off branches from the anna trees. And he's done exactly the same thing now, pulling down a branch and then feeding on it. I wonder if he does that, obviously because it's more convenient. But here's another thing. I don't know if it's true or not. It's just popped into my head. A lot of these trees produce tannins, and we know that the leaf of the silver cluster leaf is particularly bitter. Some of the trees, like the acacias, have their tannins in the form of a pheromone, and it's able to blow from one tree to another to alert them of potential dangers. And those dangers could be an impala browsing, an elephant breaking branches, or a giraffe using its long tongue and stripping the leaves off of the tree. So it could be a number of things. I wonder, if you snap the branch like this, obviously you've now killed that branch. There's no more nutrients flowing up to the leaves. I wonder if that would stop the leaves turning sort of a tannin, even more tannin. Tanniny? Tannin? No, I don't know. But you get where I'm going with that. So I wonder if they do that. Now look, he's wasted it. Oh, I suppose he hasn't wasted it, because now an impala could come through and browse on a silver cluster leaf. Although I don't know if I'd really want to eat a silver cluster leaf. They're so terrible. They are so terrible. Off he goes again. Shall we reposition? How do you feel about that, Ferg? Let's go back. We did move off the road just slightly, but before the fastest creature in Africa gets away, let's quickly go across and have a look at it.
Live. Thank you very much. We have got some interesting tracks there. And it's easy enough to identify them because we have the culprit in the road, just in front. Yes, it is a relative of Gregory. Can you find him? There we go. There he goes. Another Specs tortoise. Specs hinge tortoise. Named after John Hanning Speck, who was born on the 4th of May, 1827. And he was an English explorer officer for the British Indian Army. He made quite a few explorations into Africa back in the 1800s, and he was actually one of the lead associated searchers on the exploration of the source of the Nile. So that's quite an interesting story. He was one of the first Europeans ever to reach Lake Victoria, which is where the Mara River drains into. And as he explores, so does this Specs-hinged tortoise, as he thought to cross the road and has changed his mind, her mind, hard to say, and very camouflaged. Well, we are on the northern boundary, seeing if we can, if there are any location of any lion tracks potentially on this side, and so far nothing. We've come from Sydney's Dam. We're going to keep on heading this direction, keeping in touch with Scott as well, see if we can help him at all with Tundi, but ideally we'd like to find if there's any lion tracks crossing into Djuma or Foyatella from the north. If not, we're going to end up at Buffelshoek Dam anyway and see what's going on over there. No doubt we might find some more elephant. So come along with us as we explore. And Taylor, we're going to go back to her with her destructive elephant, Daryl.
Our destructive Daryl. Someone was calling him Demolition Daryl. I quite like that. I'm always up for a bit of alliteration. Ferg actually mentioned that this is a very healthy elephant. He's got a nice varied diet. He went from marulas to silver cluster leaf, and then now he's feeding on something else. Yesterday he was feeding on, it looked like one of the flowers. I don't know, it's got quite a thin leaf. I wonder if it was devil's thorn or something. Is he eating it again, or is he eating grass this time? It looks like grass now. He was after some flower or something yesterday. It was quite nice to watch him, but I don't know what it was. See that trunk? And he keeps twisting it. He knows we're here, and that's basically telling us just to not get too close to him, so we won't. He's just keeping an eye on us. Bobby, you're wondering if I think that elephants remember certain people. Most certainly, I 100% think that that's the case. I haven't seen this elephant for a very, very long time, though. It's been maybe almost a year, I would say, somewhere around there. And I've told the story a few times, not of Daryl and I, in fact, of another elephant on a game reserve I used to work at when I first started. So it was about 25,000 hectares or so. And it was fenced, the whole property, so the animals couldn't move around like they move around here. And there was this one guide, and I don't think he was particularly nice to the big elephant bull. And the big elephant bull didn't think he was very nice either, because on numerous occasions I'd be sitting with him, and he was very relaxed. He was known to come and feed right next to your car, and sort of come towards you from miles away. And I don't know if he enjoyed the attention. Anyways, he'd come and feed next to the car, very relaxed, and I can't tell you how many different sightings you'd hear another vehicle pulling up, and this elephant's behavior would change. And he'd go from being so calm and relaxed, and I'd been sitting with him for 20 minutes, half an hour, because I spend a lot of time with these big creatures, as you know, and he would charge this car, this one particular guide in his vehicle. I don't know if it was the scent of the vehicle, because at that lodge we worked at, we drove the same vehicles all the time. We were allocated a car to look after, or if it was the sound of his voice or his scent or what it was. But it must have happened 5 or 6 times where I'd be with this elephant and he was fine with me, but he did not like the other vehicle at all. And so yeah, so I think it definitely does happen. Out here in the Sabi sand, it might be difficult to sort of come to that conclusion, because they are able to move around and travel right into Kruger if they want to. They're not just restricted to the Sabi sand. So you can kind of see it in properties that are fenced off completely. So yeah, so I totally agree with that. I think that they do remember people. I think maybe Daryl's just playing hard to get now, because I've been gone for so long. Perhaps that's the case. Ooh. Now, Sean, you're wondering, as we look at this big giant moving through the grass and seen as though we've just seen a tortoise, if I know if an elephant has ever accidentally stood on a tortoise. I've seen some shells that look like they've been squashed by tortoises and not a vehicle. There was an interesting video of a tortoise that I think was hiding away at one of the dam, I think it was one of the dam camps. I don't know if it was one of our videos, where the herd of elephants came through and sort of moved around it. But something that we have seen that was really sad, Sean, was the blacksmith lapwing chicks that unfortunately got squashed by a herd of elephants that moved down towards Vuyatela Dam. And I think the zoomies got it. It was terrible, but something so small. It must be hard for the elephants. Remember, they're also not doing it on purpose. They're just moving through. And I think if they do sense that there's something down on the ground below them, they're going to try and avoid it to, well, the best of their ability. But things like that, accidents happen. Apparently in February, you saw a young elephant kicking a tortoise around like it was a soccer ball. I think that was with James. Okay, that's quite cool. I've never seen it happen before, but I'm pretty sure it happens on a regular basis. I mean, we see lots of young animals like lions and leopards trying to roll tortoises around. So why wouldn't an elephant play around with a tortoise? They play with rocks and logs and all sorts of other interesting things that keep their mind stimulated. So a tortoise, I'm sure they'd be quite curious about. I don't think we're going to bother Daryl too much more. He's been good today, and I don't want to push the limits with him. I mean, he is just feeding, carrying on. But I will let him go and carry on about his day. We'll go find some other elephants. Now, here's a question it's a difficult one to answer, but quite a few of you are wondering how old Daryl actually is. I think he's in his early 40s, late 30s, early 40s, somewhere around there. We can only estimate, of course, but he really is in the prime of his life. He doesn't seem to be very old. He's sort of quite a fit, strong man. Well, in terms of as fit as strong as elephants can be. So he's somewhere around there. He's still got many, many years to go. But I hope that Daryl sticks around for a few more days, and hopefully we can rekindle our friendship that we once had. Steve is on a bumble this morning. He's still trying to search for leopards and lions.
Thanks, Taylor. Little love affair you're having there with Daryl, it seems. I think you're very happy to have him back. And there is 2 toes of a lion. But it is old. It has been driven on. Actually, it is not. It is a scrub hair. Just the 2 toes. I thought I'd have a little look. We are almost at Buffelshoek Dam. There's been no sign of any of these lions coming back in. But there are reports of buffalo in the north. And we know the Unkuhumas, they enjoy their buffalo meat. And surely, if they have found 1 or 2, they are probably sitting on them. Proud Cat Mama, what an interesting question you have asked. What will happen if you remove a predator from an ecosystem? I don't know if any of you have watched this really cool little video made on Yellowstone National Park, but they reintroduced wolves that were out of that area for a very long time. And believe it or not, short and sweet, the reintroduction of the wolves has changed the course of the river. Now, what happened exactly is they hunt deer and all sorts of animals, and now those animals stay out of those areas where it's easier for the wolves to catch them, which is in the valleys and in the sort of gully areas. So the deer have moved completely out of those areas. The trees have grown back. The birds have moved into the trees. The seeds have developed, and the entire river itself has actually changed its course in the space of about 15 years. So by removing a predator, you are removing the regulatory aspect. If you just let it go unhindered, the sick and the weak will breed. So from a genetic point of view, that's not good. Predators select out the weak, they select out the infirm, they select the weak and the sick. So by keeping them out the system, you're regulating the population quite well. And also by allowing the predators in their guilds to compete with each other, you are making sure that you have the right amounts of competition at those levels. Studies they did in America between voles and I think it was cougar or mountain lion, and if you removed one of them out the system, certain things increase in number. So for example, if you remove your smaller predators, then your rodent populations go up, and if you remove your larger predators, your smaller predators go up. So the balance is very, very delicate, and it's best to be left as natural as possible. Otherwise, as I say, the balance is out of place, and once the balance is out of place, you then have to manipulate it again, which is not ideal. Weedy in one the article is the one about Yellowstone. Sorry about that, a few gremlins. We just went through a little dip. So for those of you who haven't seen the info about Yellowstone, you should just Google it and have a look. It's a very short documentary. Google how wolves influence Yellowstone, something like that. It is a phenomenal little thing to watch, and from a conservation point of view, so insightful. They only introduced a small packet wolves, and it changed the entire ecosystem. So if you want to understand how predators in their different guilds can affect it, that is a far more in-depth process. But just the introduction of one predator has the ability to change how a river moves. I think that, from an ecological point of view, is fantastic. This is always nice to see. It's a little bit of a cold morning, and we had a hornbill was sitting there on the thermal vent of the termite mound. The hornbill is just at the tree behind now. There he is, our flying banana. And he was sitting on the vent of that termite mound. And it's something that we see quite often in winter. You'll find hornbills sitting on the top of termite mounds because the termite mound is allowing hot air to come out. And anything that was from yesterday that is too hot, they need to maintain at about 32 degrees Celsius. And so you'll often find hornbills sitting there when it's cold. And Seb's been complaining about how chilly it is this morning. I think there's a cold front on its way. He was probably sitting there either feeding on termites or enjoying the heat of the thermal vent that popped up there. There is one of the vents. Perfectly designed for nature. Awesome thermoregulatory forces in play, facilitating the movement of air from underground in and out. There is a building in Zimbabwe that has been designed behind the dynamics of a termite mound, and it requires no energy to run the temperature regulation in that building. That is biomimicry at its best, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. Okay, so I hope I answered your questions there about the predators. Be nice for us to show you one this morning. And talking about predators, we got Scott who's on foot, and let's see what he has to share with you.
Nothing to share yet. We came into this area for a couple of reasons. We could find her tracks here, and we're just checking all the roads, which are the easiest place to find an animal's tracks. But we also heard some go-away birds alarm calling. Quang! Quang! But when we got here, we saw them flying after a couple of Warburg's eagles. You might be able to hear them. They're calling again now. Quang! So we thought maybe, just maybe, these go-away birds had seen the leopard, but we don't think that is the case. Of course, there's a small chance that the leopard and the birds of prey were in the same area, and the go-away birds were alarming at both. But yeah, sadly, no joy. And it must be said that we've been very, very lucky so far this summer, and the reason why we've been so lucky is because it's been very, very dry, abnormally dry, and that makes our job tracking animals a lot easier, not just on the roads, but also, more importantly, when you veer off the roads onto the smaller kind of little trails that the animals use. But now, the vegetation is so thick and green and lush, and not only that, but the Earth's crust has kind of hardened quite a lot and become almost cement-like. So if any animals do walk off the road, then it is going to be near impossible for us to follow them. So we've got our work cut out for us, even once we do find her tracks. I'm hoping we do find her tracks. If not, that's not the end of the world, because that means we've got a good idea of where not to search this afternoon, and we can work some other areas where we think she might be hiding out. Something that I've been thinking about, that I'd like you to think about as well, is the events. What happened last night is, of course, really interesting. Tingana was chased off of his kill by the Hukumuri male. Now, what I'm wondering is, will a male leopard like Tingana actively then go and seek out Tundi and her cub to update them of this possible threat that's nearby? Of course, it would require Tingana to know where Tundi and her cub were, but hypothetically speaking, there is a chance that he did know where they were, because their tracks were walking down the very same road yesterday. So, just something to think about. I don't think a male leopard would do that. I think if he's in the area and Hukumuri came onto the scene, yes, then maybe he would try and defend the cub. But I really don't think that he would go and look for Tundi and be like, "Look, honey, there's trouble. Let's get out of here with our little baby child." But I don't know what you guys think, and of course there's no way of being certain. But just something to think about, what may have happened while we were all asleep last night. There's also been no tracks of Tingana, so the fact that we've seen neither of their tracks means that maybe there's a chance that he did exactly what I think he didn't. But time will tell, hopefully. Anna Marie, you would like to know if I think Tingana has already kind of given in to the Hukumuri male. And I would say yes. I was chatting with Jared, one of our tech wizards, last night about the very same thing, and he said exactly the same question. Who do I think is the boss? And I think definitely Hukumuri is dominant over Tingana, because Tingana's given up a portion of his territory to the Hukumuri male. About half of Djuma, I think it's fair to say, is now being occupied fairly regularly by the Hukumuri male, and we're seeing less of Tingana in that area, which means he's given that up. On top of that, last night is a classic example of Tingana being submissive to Hukumuri. So I think just like when Tingana came in 3 years ago and slowly chased out Mvula, interestingly in the same direction, in an easterly direction, I think the same thing's going to happen with Tingana. Slowly he's just going to spend more and more time further east, and Hukumuri male's slowly going to increase his territory onto Djuma. Now, something to think about is that a male leopard only can look after so much land. So that's why I think Hukumuri hasn't come in and taken over the whole of Tingana's territory, because that would almost be counterproductive for the Hukumuri male, because that means you'd have too much land to kind of patrol and survey. So I think that's the reason why he hasn't occupied the whole area that Tingana does. But over time he could well, as he becomes more familiar with the area. So yeah, exciting times, because, you know, the chance of us now being able to see some interaction between these two males is highly likely. So hopefully we'll be able to be in the right position to share some of those interesting moments with you, but it's not something that happens very often. Territorial takeovers between big male leopard and lion is something that happens only every 3 or 4 years on average. So exciting times to be exploring this wilderness. PK, you would like to therefore know if it's official then that Hukumuri has taken over? In my opinion, yes. I think he has. Again, not the entire territory of Tingana, but for good reason. He's still got existing territory, but he is expanding, and this is just an extra chunk for now. Who knows how much bigger he'll want his territory to become, but there is a limit. You know, they can only look after so much land. Alrighty, well, I need to get more focused, keep my eyes on the ground and not miss any tracks. And while we continue to scour the earth for any sign of these secretive leopards, we are going to send you back to Taylor, who's just cruising about.